What is good? What is good? What is good, you guys? Welcome to the call, you guys. I hope you guys are having a phenomenal day. It is the 15th of March, right? And this is our weekly Outlook call. So we'll be going through our current setups. We'll be looking at some of the setups that we took from last week, some of the things that played out. We were in some of the JPYs last week. We also took some buys on USD CAD. We hit take profit three on our USD CAD buys, which was fantastic, you guys. We are at $100 on the dollar index, right? That is a key psychological level. We're going to look at all of these things as we go through right now. We'll jump over and look at the JPYs. We caught an amazing sell side position on CAD JPY. I know some of you guys were in GJ just as well. I did not catch the sells on GJ. But I didn't catch anything else actually. I only caught my CAD JPY. But we did have some previous setups here as well that we will review. But with that being said, you guys, as we kickstart the weekly Outlook call, you guys know I always like to do just a quick review of the news, just so that we're not blindsided and we can see clearly what's taking place ahead. Straight out the gate, you guys, we have CPI news on our Canadian dollar. The CAD has been our focus for just about the entire year. We made some pretty bold predictions on what we were going to experience with the CAD. So we will put a focus on this Canadian dollar as we kickstart the week this week, right? We'll put a focus here on the Canadian dollar. We also have some USD news on Tuesday, and then we've got more CAD and more USD news on Wednesday. Some NZD and some AUD news just as well. So all in all, guys, this is probably one of the weeks that we've been waiting for when it comes to our CAD. Overall, we literally have been from the beginning of the year. I believe our very first call of the year was reviewing the Canadian dollar and some long-term expectations. We're finally starting to see those things come into alignment now. So we will be doing a review of that. Then towards the end of the week, we've got a big mixture, you guys, from GBPs to CHF to USD. Um, a lot of a lot of news this week, you guys. So there's going to be, no reason to chase a trade. There's always going to be another opportunity. As we kickstart this week, we will put a focus on the Canadian dollar out the gate. We'll do a review on the USD CAD as well as our CAD JPY. We'll do some references across like pairs like Euro CAD just as well, so we can get a clear view of what that is happening. But first and foremost, you guys, what we're already seeing as we've already started to, kickstart the week, we were able to identify that there was a completed move here, is what I might call it. We have an equal measured move, as I would see it here, right? To where we find our lows here and the market trades to a high. We create the buy side move, right? This is a continuation of our uptrend. After that point in time, we actually see the market move into some sideways consolidation. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to clone this and see if it would be an equal measured move from this low to this high. And as you see, I don't want to move the line at all. But what we see is that it actually did come to a point to which it seems as though this move is the C leg of this previous move, right? So we did create that buy side. We went into some consolidation, and then we had our reaccumulation here that takes price to a higher level, right? From this point in time, we can now anticipate that we get some sell side on the dollar. We have traded to our $100 psychological level. And as we see on the 100, excuse me, or as we see on the 4 hour time frame, we also did make a slight move to sweep these previous highs, right? We've got our highs in here, and we can see how we made a move to sweep those highs. Personally, I might like a higher sweep. to see price trade a little bit higher, probably into 101, so that we can actually finally fill this gap that was left back in May of 2025, right? We could also trade all the way back into about 101.5. All things are possible in that range and in that realm. But I do want to identify the fact that we have swept the highs and that we are now getting a 4 hour rejection, right? The 4 hour closes in 20 minutes. So we will be here to see how this first 4 hour closes, but we're seeing a large rejection there. We are creating an imbalance. This is an active imbalance being created. So when people talk about fair value gaps and they talk about things like that, imbalance zones, right? We're seeing it actively be created with this bearish engulfing candle. It creates this zone or this area, right at the base of that candle where we would anticipate that at some point in time, price would retrace back into that area to mitigate the imbalance, as we would call it, right? We want to make sure that there is an equal amount of buyers for the sell. So we might actually see price trade back into structure here, and then maybe we get continued sells from that point in time. Um, as we look at that, we might ask ourselves, what are some of the targets that we would be looking for? If this is a sell side move, a genuine sell side move, what would be some of our targets, right? Some of the targets would be these imbalanced areas here. We can look at this original break where we created that bullish engulfing candle that took us out of our consolidation. That original buy side move is a target that we can see price trade back into. That would be about 50 points below our psychological level, that 100. We should definitely see price trade back to this $100 level, more specifically. And then what we really want to look for is, how do we respond here? Do we create a lower low here, right? Or do we create a higher low that takes us to that 101.5 area, right? Maybe we bounce off of here and the market actually pushes into this higher structure. It's one of the possibilities, right? However, whether it is going to sell and create a lower low or whether it creates a higher low, we would anticipate that markets would sell from where we're trading at right now. So, with that being said, across the board, we can look at other currency pairs and other things like USD CHF, where we would anticipate seeing the exact same sell side move, right? We previously uh, took these previous highs and we actually traded into previous market structure here. I actually do, I might like to see us trade a little bit higher on USD CHF, um, if I'm being honest, at some point in time. However, it is quite possible that we could trade back into here first before making that buy side move. I could see us taking the sell side, maybe into structure here, trading back to that 50%, and then maybe we get our continuation buys from there. Or maybe price actually ends up trading below to sweep all of these lows to mitigate this imbalance further, and then we get some real big time buys from our previous week's entry, right? This would be a crazy setup, yo. This would be a crazy setup. If markets did all of this, if you pulled all the way back down here, right, without coming and creating these lower lows, that would be an interesting thing to see. I would be very curious if the market did all of that. I would really start looking at, like, oh, like you're doing some wild stuff going on. Like if all of that happened, I would probably be looking to see price trade all the way up to here, which is a whole 1,000 pip move. It's interesting that it's actually 1,000 pip move, even to the point. 1,000 pips, nothing to see here, but we'll come back to that, right? So this is something that's very interesting. We did just get our first trade call of the week. My guy Flip, not my guy Flip, Lord have mercy, thinking about my dude. Um, but my guy Oscar has just dropped the first trade call of the week. and he actually called a sell side on USD CHF, on this side. And I can definitely, I don't know where his targets are, but I could definitely see us trading away from structure right here and trading back into these lows before going, bullish, from that point in time. With that being said, USD CAD, I can, surely see some sell side on this play just as well. Sells coming back into structure here or even back into the lows. I honestly don't really see markets coming and sweeping our levels that we originally bought from, but I can see just about the entire move being erased, which is interesting. um, we're really looking, and the reason why I tell you that is this. Let me express this to you. We take our buys, we trade nearly to the 1.375, right? We're unable to create a higher high. That's purely it. Now, what that means to me is that this entire range becomes our consolidation range, just like what we were previously looking at. We can consolidate here. If we break down below, then we end up seeing price trade to our next quarter level, right? But we can anticipate that markets will trade within this range here. Now we mitigate this imbalance that we may sweep this low and that price potentially trades into this structure here or even into the lows down here. Um, just simply because we could not create a higher high. So now we might create the higher lows, and it's like, do we have enough strength to create that higher high? If price trades away and then trades back to this level, I would be confident that we would see markets trade above from there. As we move forward to AUD USD, we have created some strong structure here. Markets created a higher high, took the highs here, took the highs here, traded back into our psychological level, trading off of the zero point 0.7. We are creating a higher low compared to previous lows, previous lows, previous lows. And then we have this inside bar that we're now creating. Sells into this imbalanced area, creates an inside bar. The market closes above where last week opened. It doesn't create any gaps. So it's no level that we have to trade back to, but we can immediately create a bearish engulfing candle, right? That is telling. All of this down here, I believe markets eventually trade down to this level here. However, it may go to make that move to the 725, and then we may see a more dramatic sell side move from here, right? And this is where the dollar really gets crazy and maybe like, I don't know what's going on, but all of this is open field for me right now. I see all of this as a possibility. If we trade back to the highs, but we're not able to break out of here, right? Quite possible, or even if we do break out of here and we get a rejection to where we actually close as a candle and this ends up being a wick, sell side wick, um, highly possible that the dollar goes on like a generational buy side move. That everything that happens benefits the dollar in the craziest way. NZD, same thing, approaching the 5.8. We didn't test at the 5.75, which is what I was waiting for. That was my final target to the sell side move. NZD USD, I have been anticipating some buys because we have all these equal highs here and here. I could quite easily see price buying all the way back in to sweep these highs and then that's right at the zero point 0.6 level, right? And then us actually seeing maybe these markets crash. That's what it's looking like it's setting up for me, guys, honestly. And those are really big words, but this price structure is very, very interesting to me. And I don't know if this the buy side on the dollar ends at 100. All of these pairs are showing like this downside move could be at an end here. I'm getting ready to call this GBP buy, I think. Hmm. Should I wait? Because we could see price trade into here. This would be our low. And it's like everything came so close and then just rejected. There may be a buy to here, a sell that sweeps this low, trades into structure. I don't know. I don't know. You guys can see my initial views are all buy side, but it just seems too easy. It seems too easy. Like everything that we're saying is already moving, but all prices came, they all came close, but none of them like fully. Why does it seem too easy? I'm sketched. Am I yeah. See, this is sketchy here because this could just as easily do this, bump bump. These could all just be easy moves at the beginning of the week, and then price trades into this lower level here. I would want to know, uh, where's my add condition? Why can't I type? Where's my type? That's so weird. Freaking weird, bro. Hmm. Because usually you guys know, let me put my little message here at the top to where I write in, but it's not showing that, and I don't have the patience to figure it out. But that would be the condition. Huh. Yo, we're about done, actually. No, not really. We didn't go through the JPYs, but right as we were talking about this USD CHF, you literally called the same USD CHF. What's happening, my guy? We literally just went over all of those USD pairs. We just identified that we did not create a higher high, right? We came back and tested this previous structure. We swept these highs, but we did not create a high above here. This was our USD CAD from last week. Price is now trading back into structure. We also have all of these imbalances here, these lows here where price can trade to. We can see price trade back into structure here. We've got the same thing on the dollar. We identified that there is this was an equal measured move, right? Sideways consolidation, measured move comes and we sweep these highs just barely, right? We trade into this structure here. There is a gap up here on the dollar that we're going to be paying attention to, because there's a possibility that we trade back into this structure or even into here before we get the final pivot on the dollar. But we do have these imbalances here and here where we can expect for price to trade down to on the dollar back to the 100. We're trading at that 100 psychological level. We could trade back to where we broke out of that sideways consolidation, or even continue to trade lower from here, which would validate your USD CHF call, right? We could actually go ahead and start to see price cycle, trade below structure and then come back into these lows here, as well as even further beyond that. So first thing that we looked at was our AUD USD buy side. Um, clearest, cleanest move. We identified that we're trading perfectly at that quarter level right now, the zero point 0.7 level. And we're now also creating a bullish engulfing candle that also creates a higher low above that quarter level with new highs in store, right? We looked at USD CAD and we noticed that USD CAD, we did not create the highs here. We have a lot of USD CAD news or CAD news, CPI news tomorrow for us to be focused on. So there is a lot of potential for this CAD pair to move, pretty significantly well. Um, so we'll be looking out for that. We have our GBP USD, which is also buying away from our quarter level just as well. We're creating a bullish engulfing candle that actually creates like an inside bar candle. You can see where price opens higher, right? From the level where we open higher, we create a bullish engulfing candle that is taking us back into our previous market structure. The only thing that I'm a little concerned about is the fact that we could trade into this lower level here. So there's a potential that we get like a little fake out, maybe price buys up to here. By that point, you're already up 80 pips, right? But maybe price flushes back, sweeps the lows one more time, and then maybe we get some buy side from there. But we are seeing that buy side move on GBP, out the gate. You know what I'm saying? Euro USD, a little conscious or cautious here, because I can see the buy side, but then I also see that we have some sell side here as well, right above the 1.125 quarter level. Quite possibly we trade back to the 1.5 or even to the 7.25 to mitigate these previous imbalances. You can see the structure here. We can trade back into our previous level here, and then maybe from here we sell down to this 1.25 level, and we end up with like a longer term position that's more similar to this that comes from the buy side, but then the sells eventually come from there. Possible. So I kind of don't like Euro USD just because it feels like we're trading right in the middle of a bigger move. But I would like to buy from the lows or sell from the highs, whichever way price goes. Um, and then, of course, we do have those same highs on GBP USD and NZD USD, right? And then AUD USD, as we spoke about already. So I'm in tune. I do see that there is potential sell side on the dollar at this point in time right now, as we trade away from that $100 level, right? There's lots of opportunities for continued sell side moves from there. As we move over to like the Nasdaq, Nas is opening up very bullish, right? I don't know how I feel about it at this point in time yet. I would like to see a little bit more, simply because we did have these final imbalanced areas that we actually never made a move to come and mitigate, right? This structure, as we're turning over here, um, I'm not convinced necessarily that this is the end of the sells on Nas. I'm not convinced. I do believe that we could get some solid buy side, maybe to as a sweep back above 25, which is 500 points from where we are right now. We get a big bullish move right now. Price trades above. Maybe we sweep all these highs. But once we sweep these highs, there's a possibility that price actually faces some you know resistance before actually clearing these external highs. If we clear these external levels, then I would be looking at 26 on NAS easily and probably 27.5 if we can break above those external levels. However, if price gets caught in here to where we buy to the top and then we start to get some rejections here, I would anticipate that we trade back to these lows and that we actually probably even trade over. I have some downside projections on NAS right now that are, um, I don't want to say concerning, but I think that we got some sell side potential on NAS, and I'm not sold on the buy side. I'm not sold. I'm not convinced. At this time last year, March, April of last year, we were trading at 17,000, right? These were our buys last year, April 2025. This is where we were calling the buys on NAS last year, 17,000 flat, right? I believe that we could trade back to 22, 20,000. which is over 50,000 pips away. I really do. I believe that we could trade all the way back down there. Very bold statements. I told you guys I'm going to make some bold statements, but I could see us sweeping this high and then struggling. If we sweep these highs and struggle to create this external range, I surely would see some sell side opportunities here for the longer term. Just simply because we're even coming to these lows, but we're not going to test that low. You got to come back and test that low. And if we test the high and then test the low, that's going to be enough for that. Like, that's going to be enough force to take us to another place. So I'm going to be looking for that, you guys. And if we trade below this 24,000 level, there's 22,000 is open to us. So
So
we're
when
going to
it
be
comes back
patient. Talk,
to it, it's
talk
the
to me.
vocal of fittest.
Say it again.
So, Barter is the not. I might have unmuted myself by accident.
Oh, it's all good. No, no
Good
worries, no
evening,
worries.
everybody.
Hey, good evening, man. Great to have you on the call.
It's all
Uh,
good.
yes, sir. Yeah, but that's kind of what I'm looking at in regard to that. US 30, I don't necessarily trade it. But we're seeing something similar here. We're creating a higher low here just as well, right? So we could see some buy side momentum, even on US 30, maybe even as high as we got like structure all the way up here, 49,000, which is a very significant buy side move, on this trade in itself. Back to structure here. Um, Very significant upside. I don't really trade 30 though, but I do use it as a reference. But I would expect to see price trade back to structure here. And maybe that's what goes with NAS back to the highs here, or even maybe that pulls the market even further than that, right? But I do see this as a potential buy side. We have our downtrend right here. That downtrend gets broken. We move into that sideways consolidation kind of a period, right? Now, after this sideways consolidation, hey, if you start trading 30, man, we need a master of each one of these, instruments. NAS is a little smoother for me, but I do look at 30 as a reference. As we're trading sideways into this sideways consolidation and we've created a low that's higher than this previous low, all we're looking for is a higher high and then a pullback here. And we would be prepared to take our buy side positions on 30, which would also pull our NAS positions along with us. So NAS would buy and 30 would buy back to the highs. That's all we need to see. A little buy above here and then trade back into structure. Um, Yep, that's what I see, you guys, in regard to all of those things. The first one that we talked about was AUD, and then of course we had our USD CHF just as well. Um, I'm going to be watching all of these different things. Before we get off, we'll do a quick sweep of the JPYs. JPYs, this was our basket from last week, you guys. We had a phenomenal week when it came to trading the JPYs. It did exactly as we expected. We do have a possibility of a pullback to where price can come and retest this order block here. Anytime you see those railroad tracks that buy, sell, buy, just you can highlight those areas. Those are points of interest. We also want to note that there is no higher high that has been created on this JPY basket. So although we did get that initial pullback, we are still creating a lower high. So with that being said, we might actually go ahead and say, pull the fibs high to low, and are we lining up with any of our fib levels, like our 78.6, which is where we are trading at currently. So I'll tell you guys what made me a little cautious to that, and I can actually go and look at this on a higher time frame. Maybe we pull it up to here, right? We pull it up to here, we're at the 50%. What would be the top of that move? We pull it up to here. Maybe we trade a little bit higher back into structure. And we got our move. I kind of experiment with it, just play with it, see what lines up well for me. And I actually do like this sell right here. We're at that 50% between the 50 and the 61.8. And we're starting to see price turn right around just as well. Something that made me a little cautious, guys, is just simply the fact that we didn't reach our quarter level. We got our sells on CAD JPY, but our sells came early. They didn't come to our quarter. Now we've created what has been considered to be relatively equal highs. This is a clear lower high, right? But then we also failed to make a lower low last week. Last week we did not make the lower low. So we got a lower high, but we have a higher low. It's quite easily, possible that price will trade back to the center and that we will create what is going to be called a bull flag, right? To where we now see price go and do something like this, and then trade into here, 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 and then give us the next move that takes us higher, right? That would be like our flag pattern, as we would see it. Um, so with all that being said, I want to be cautious of that and I want to plan for things like that. And I want to be like, okay, cool. You know, I caught my buy side, I caught my sell side move last week, right? Pretty good sell side move. We're actually already starting to show a little bit of a bullish engulfing candle here. We've just tested structure here. This is actually a pretty sound buy side position, I might say, right? Stop loss below the lows, risk 25 pips, 30 pips, trading this back to the highs and actually take this trade straight back to our quarter level. It's 120 pips, 1 to 4 risk to reward. JPY basket, does it validate it? Right? Let me clear this off my screen. Do we get a validation of that trade? We did just come back and mitigate this imbalance. Price is rejecting. We look like we could create a bearish engulfing candle at the end of this 1 hour candle right here. That might be our last confirmation, bearish engulfing candle. We are getting, I think that this might be a trade for us to call, guys, right? This is valid. This is valid. We have our, you can see here how the market curves, right? I always pay attention when I see, what can I use to do that? When I see curves like this, right? After this curve, price trades into structure, then we get a mechanical sell back down to our current price. We have this imbalanced area here that price perfectly comes back down to mitigate. Now, price trades away, kind of trades sideways, but we trade right back down into that structure. These become the protected lows for me. These are areas to where if the market were to trade below here, it would invalidate my trade. So it would cost me 30 pips in order to say whether my trade was invalidated or not, right? Whether I was like, yep, that's just not a good setup. But this imbalanced area right here could cause, or could work as a first target, right? 40 pips. 40 pips is not bad, right? So I'm risking 30 pips to make 40 pips. It's a 1 to 1.25 ish, out the gate, right? Um, I could send the signal and give people a range and say between here and there, between 3-0 and 2-0, right? Get a mid range right here. 1 to 4 risk to reward. I like it. Should I do it? Higher time frame. Still in the buy side move. We still are hearing about a lot of drama in terms of oil around the Strait of Hormuz. Maybe that is still going to play a factor. I don't know. I'm going to write up the signal, but I'm going to send the signal at the close of the 1 hour time frame. I'm going to take an extra step of caution. I'm going to be more patient because we don't have to rush. right? We find the bullish engulfing candle here, and then we see where price comes in and we test, and price immediately rejects, right? Now we see long side position with a target
I
towards the
was
highs or even
my
up
bad,
here.
Wally.
Talk to me,
I
my
was
guy.
yeah, I was actually gonna call that one AUD JPY buys. On the daily, you'll see I think your level's right on it already, 111.5, but on the daily there's more confluence with it. Um and I was gonna call, is it right there? Might be the 4 hour. Yeah, oh yeah, so there's like, yeah, that kind of like order block
Oh,
looking
I'm on the
thing.
wrong pair. Okay, this is.
Oh, there we go.
I was
Yeah,
literally
the
on
four
CAD
hour.
JPY. That's crazy.
So that nice little resistance right there, right before your black line. You could see that small little red bearish move. That resistance I put right there. So I was gonna call the buy at like 111.6,
Yep.
but it already went up 20 pips, so I just waited.
Oh yeah, bro.
But
We'll be patient. It's all good. There's plenty of opportunities here. I do like this CAD JPY. I think that I will call it. Um, I like that 1 hour setup here. So let me go ahead and write this out, right? Let me see. So CAD JPY, this is going to be the buy side move, buy 116.3 to 116.2. Stop loss 115.95. Take profit 116.6, 6, 116.9. We're really just gonna walk this up to 117.2, and we're going straight to our quarter level, and then we're gonna go to 117.5. Easy money on that. We'll use the 116.25 as our average entry. 117.5 gives us 120 pips to the top. We can analyze this and call this our buy side on the 1 hour or 2 hour time frame. Okay. GBP, same thing. Big imbalance. You got an even bigger move. You got 120 pips just to this move here on GJ, but we would expect for price to trade back into this structure here, potentially back to this 12.15, and potentially to take the highs, right? Euro JPY trading back to our previous entry, right? This is where we bought from in the past. They're all pretty much doing the same thing. NZD JPY looks really good though. This is probably one of the best ones. This is probably one of the best ones. This is a strong support here. If we break below here, we would surely expect downside across all the JPYs. That would be the pump up for the JPYs. But I really just believe that the sells are going to come, but before they come, we're going to test our next quarter levels, right? And if there's still pressure in Iran, around oil, then I want to be on the side of the people that are putting the pressure on it right now, right? Which is showing that our sells that we took, these are the sells that we took last week, they are valid, but we didn't create any lower low on those sells. Now price is trading back in, and as long as we maintain above here, we should expect to see price buy. But that's it for me, you guys. That's what I'm looking at for the week this week. I'm gonna be very patient. I'm gonna be slow this week. Um, I'm not gonna overexert myself. You know what I'm saying? We got oh so that 4 hour candle closed. It did not close bearish engulfing on the yen basket, right? We did not see it on the 30 minute, so we didn't get that full confirmation like we would like. This could continue to weaken. If so, I'll probably just be exiting that trade. If we see this just continue to get bullish, this is like a decision area right here. We want to see how price is going to act in this consolidation area as we're trading sideways right here. We want to see the break below or above. We're at resistance right now, so it could take a lot to do this, right? Um, and this is just too good of an opportunity, to be honest. And that's 117.5 is it's in touch, it's in reach. You know what I'm saying? Like it's too close for us not to get the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Like you came close, but we ain't get there. You feel me? Like I need the whole thing. And then once we get there, then we can talk about the sell side. But I'm proud about our cells that we caught, beautiful cells, but I believe that we might get one more final pull, um, which would be in tune with some sell side on USD CAD, and some sell side on USD CHF. I see both of these things. I believe that we could trade below these lows on USD CHF and trade back into structure here, before we might actually launch and go in the opposite direction, right? So we are going to stay in tune. This is also another good one. You know what I'm saying? I might wait for a few more pips. We might see AUD, USD buys just as well. Or I might let this CAD JPY move a little bit first, and not start off too hot. You know what I'm saying? But we'll give this a couple hours, a little while, you guys, and we'll be back around. But hope you guys all have a good rest of your night. Today was a quick weekly outlook call, but we'll have eyes on the market throughout the week, you guys. Stay tuned and be prepared. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it.